Southern Maryland prior to World War II was a pastoral, agrarian landscape dotted with tobacco farms, watermen, and the small agricultural and marine support businesses that tended to their needs. Community gathering points included the many general stores and churches that were prevalent throughout the region. With the Chesapeake Bay nearby, boat building was a way of life, and places like the M.M. Davis Shipyard in Solomons were hubs of activity. Against this peaceful bayside and agricultural backdrop, war was taking shape in both Europe and in the Pacific. After the United States joined the war following the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, amphibious landing craft and the personnel trained to operate them were sorely needed to help take the war to the enemy. To help meet this need, Solomons was deemed an ideal training site for amphibious warfare due to the proximity of the beaches and location away from the open ocean and German submarines, or U-boats, along with adjacent swamps that provided a natural buffer from civilians. As part of the establishment of the Solomons Amphibious Training Base, the Secretary of the Navy signed a formal declaration that took 96.75 acres of the Dowell Peninsula nearby to Solomons, sacrificing many structures. Indeed, the war brought big changes to Solomons as an influx of soldiers, sailors, and workers increased the population from 263 in 1942 to over 2,600 in 1945. Reekers Hotel was initially used for accommodating approximately 160 enlisted men, but as the number of service members grew from 500 to 2,000, the Navy's Solomons Amphibious Training Base was formally established on July 3, 1942. The curriculum was slow to develop, but eventually offered everything from landing a Sherman tank to cooking under combat conditions. Every conceivable situation was planned for during trainings, but housing and eating facilities quickly became inadequate. 4,000 men would need to be trained at a time to coincide with Operation Torch in November of 1942. Personnel trained at the Solomons Amphibious Training Base would support operations in the Pacific and Atlantic theaters, including Operation Overlord, the Allied invasion of Normandy, France on June 6, 1944. Crews trained at Solomons went on to guide landing craft tanks, or LCTs, and landing craft infantry, or LCI, and other vessels, while under intense German fire to Allied invasion beaches, including the bloodiest of all, Omaha Beach. One sailor who trained at Solomons, pharmacist mate James Roland Argo, recalled that as his ship, LCI 489, hit Omaha Beach the morning of D-Day, immediately all hell broke out. The German bunkers that were supposed to have been shot out in an air raid weren't. For 2 solid days, our LCI was shelled. As a pharmacist mate or medic, Argo recalled, "I patched these men up the best I could and got the really injured ones transferred to hospital ships." As he further recalled, "It seems a miracle now that we did not lose one man on our LCI on D-Day. Sometimes the air was so full of fire that it seems impossible that any of us survived." Solomons and nearby Cove Point eventually became a primary training ground for the Navy in amphibious warfare during World War II. But production of ships and equipment quickly overwhelmed the facilities there. Other problems with the Solomons site also included a lack of rail transportation, no room for expansion, lack of beaches with surf conditions and deepwater docking for larger amphibious vessels, and inadequate housing, water, and community facilities. The base was deactivated February 6, 1945. From July 1942 to April 1, 1945, a total of 67,698 officers and enlisted men had passed through the gates. The Calvert Marine Museum honors each and every one of these patriots who so honorably served our nation during its time of great need. We thank you for your bravery and service.